There are just some things that I would be willing to die on for crochet. Hey, I'm Evelyn, the creator of Evelyns.Crafts, and today I'm going to be reacting to unpopular crochet opinions. Some of these I took from Reddit, and some of them I got from you, my followers. Here we go. I absolutely don't care what size yarn I used compared to the pattern. As long as you don't care what size your animal ends up compared to the pattern, then I would say, sure, go for it. Some of the proportions might be slightly off, but it should mostly turn out okay. But if we're talking about wearable crochet, then this is absolutely absurd. You must pay attention to the yarn size or your garment is not going to fit you in the slightest. If I can wing it, I won't frog it. Often when I forget a stitch in the last round, I just make 2 in the one in the next round. Okay. I think almost every crocheter can agree that they have probably done this before. You're working on a big project and you somehow miss an increase, so in the next round you just add an extra stitch. I've definitely done this with amigurumi. My hot take is that I hate the look of crochet for sweaters. Let me go get one that I've made. You best bet your bottom dollar that every time I wear this, I get compliments. And guess what? This is entirely double crochets. And if you hate it, then fix your eyes. Most granny squares are ugly AF. I did a 100-day challenge on TikTok where I made a different granny square every single day and then I put them together into a blanket. These are all granny squares. Every single one. And if you're telling me that all these squares are ugly, then you don't even deserve to look at this blanket. Let me get some more. Here's some I'm going to turn into wall hangings. These are my favorite granny squares. Granny squares are gorgeous, and I will stand by that until my grave. I rest my case. I do not enjoy super complicated patterns. Let me just repeat the same few stitches and zone out completely. I think there's a time and a place for both super complicated patterns and just boring ones. If I want to mindless crochet, then maybe I'll just sit and make a granny square or a blanket using the same stitch going back and forth. But most of the granny squares in that blanket were intermediate to advanced. When I want to make something really beautiful and I'm in the mood to actually think and process through a pattern, then I'm absolutely going to use a more complicated design. So I don't completely agree with this one. I think there's a time and a place for both. Hook sizes and gauges are wibbly wobbly timey-wimey. LOL. Swatches? We don't need no stinking swatches. As a beginner crocheter, I probably would have agreed with this because I didn't know the importance of making swatches, especially for a wearable garment. If you want yours to look the same on you as the person who created the pattern, then you have to make a swatch and you might have to make multiple. I think the most I've made is 5. I kept tweaking the hook size. I eventually had to just go up a yarn size. But you know what? I'll put the sweater that I made here, and it fit me in the end because I took the time to make that swatch. If I hadn't done that, then the sweater, at first using the wrong size yarn, would have turned out super teeny tiny. It wouldn't have fit me. Or using the wrong size hook, there might have been huge holes in it in between all of the stitches, and then I would not have liked the ending look. For those of you who aren't familiar with swatches and gauges, basically a pattern will say if you go 10 stitches across and 5 rows up, it should be 4 inches by 3 inches. I'm completely making up those numbers. So if you make your gauge swatch using the same hook and the same yarn as them, and yours doesn't make those same dimensions, then you need to switch your hook size. Because maybe your tension is tighter, or your tension is looser. Everyone has different tensions, and that's okay. You just need to make sure that you find the right hook size that will make the same gauge as the pattern. Because then you know that your final product will be roughly the same size as the pattern. I hate having a yarn stash. I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to show you. Okay, I gotta say something. I absolutely love having a yarn stash because chances are I probably have a yarn here that I can use for the project. I didn't go buy yarn for these. I just used yarn that was in my stash left over from old projects and they turned into something beautiful. Now I will say that maybe I do have a slight problem. Maybe I do have a little bit too much yarn right now. If my toes poke through the holes in an afghan, then it's worthless. I have a funny story that goes along with this one. When I was young, I would do sleepovers at my best friend's house, and her grandma or her aunt had just crocheted their family a bunch of blankets, to the point where they didn't have regular blankets. They only had a basket of Afghans. And I remember that whenever I used this certain blanket, I would wake up in the middle of the night and my toes would be poking through the blanket. They used thick yarn and must have done double crochets or treble crochets. I can't get on board that these blankets are worthless. I think that blankets can absolutely be beautiful even though they have holes in them that your toes might poke through. And there's a solution. Just wear socks and your toes won't poke through. I hate weaving in ends. I'm not a person who's ever had really strong feelings for weaving in ends or against weaving in ends. I just look at them as something that has to be done in order to finish the project, and so I do them. I don't have a choice. When I'm crocheting, I do try to crochet over my ends as much as possible so that there are fewer ends to weave in the end. And I'm also a person who likes to weave in the ends as I go. So if I'm making a bunch of granny squares, then I'm going to weave in the ends after a granny square instead of waiting to weave in all of them at the end. That would be a complete nightmare. My least favorite part is counting. I absolutely hate counting. Worst part of crochet for me. Are you okay? Did you go to school? Did you make it through kindergarten? I've never hated counting because I can count. I will say when I'm trying to count and people are talking to me, then that does get a little bit frustrating. I have to either ignore the people or stop counting and restart the count. So if I'm going to do a project that I know takes a lot of counting and a lot of thinking, then I'm going to do it earlier in the day when there's a lot more light and I know nobody's going to bother me. But if I'm tired at night, I'm not going to do a project that includes a lot of counting. I'm going to do something a little bit more mindless. I hate that a lot of patterns need to be paid for. Authors don't write books and then give away their books for free. Sewing patterns aren't given away for free. Now, thanks to social media, there are people who are able to make free tutorials and give out free patterns, and I think that's great when you can find a free pattern that you want. I think it depends a lot on the person and their financial circumstances. I have no problem paying for a pattern because I want to support the artist, because I like their work. If someone can figure out how to, somewhat, replicate something you've made without buying your pattern, then you're not allowed to be mad about it. Have you heard of copyright laws? Have you heard of plagiarism? Kind of have a twofold opinion on this one. If you see something and you think, I can create that, and you're gonna recreate it and just use it for yourself, just personally, then I think, okay, that's fine. I understand people are gonna do that. But I do not think that it's okay to copy someone's pattern without their permission and then sell it or distribute the product. That crosses the line. This is something that a lot of fiber artists get really angry about when they see people copying what they've made. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should. Pulling from the center of your yarn is dumb. No, it is not dumb. It is the way to go. It comes out so easily and so smooth, so that when I'm crocheting I can keep going on it and I just give it a little tug. If I try to pull, do this around pull, well, now I have to actually put effort into it. Now my yarn ball is bouncing up and down and moving so that I can get the extra yarn. Just use the middle pull. No issues. No issues at all. Now the middle pull does have a downside. When you get to the very end of your yarn skein, then you do have to roll it into a ball, but middle pull all day long. I hate to be a hater, but the TikTok crochet community sucks. Then you're not in the right crochet community, because my community does not suck. Us hookers are fabulous. I have found the crochet community both on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube to be overwhelmingly positive and supportive of each other. It has been great to make friends through social media. I don't know anybody around me who crafts, so it's great to have those connections with people through social media. I've bought a bunch of patterns, I've made a bunch of projects, all because I'm part of this wonderful community of extremely talented fiber artists. So I don't want to say you're wrong, but you're wrong on this one. Crocheting in the round sucks. Just know, you need to do that for a bunch of projects. Get over it. Crochet in the round. Moving on. Magic circle is garbage. The magic circle is fantastic. My opinion, the method that I use keeps it nice and tight and then there's no problems. Once you've made 100 of them, they're super easy to do. Single crochet stitches are overrated. There is a time and a place for every single stitch. We need single crochet stitches. I do not like those ruffle hats. I don't see what others see in them. They're pretty though. I just feel like this person does not actually think they're pretty. I'm gonna have to look at this creator and see if she's made any ruffle hats herself. Looks like beanies. I don't really have an opinion on these ruffle hats. I've never made one that has a super ruffle, but some people can rock them. Go you! Those are all of the unpopular opinions / hot takes that I found on Reddit and that you guys told me on Instagram. No matter what your opinions are, I think we can all agree that crochet, knitting, anything fiber arts is an absolutely fabulous hobby. It's a great way to express yourself and find a community of people just like you. If I said something that you don't agree with or that you do, let me know in the comments, or if you have another unpopular opinion that I didn't mention, let me know what it is. Hookers! It's been real. Thanks for watching. Later, hookers.
Excuse me. What? Come again.
I have nothing else to say. I guess I don't have opinions.